Thou art aware, O my God, that since the day thou didst call me into being out of the water of thy love, till I reached 15 years of age, I lived in the land which witnessed my birth, Shiraz. Then thou didst enable me to go to the seaport, where for 5 years I was engaged in trading with the goodly gifts of thy realm, and was occupied in that with which thou hast favored me through the wondrous essence of thy loving kindness. I proceeded therefrom to the Holy Land, where I sojourned for 1 year. Then I returned to the place of my birth. There I experienced the revelation of thy sublime bestowals and the evidences of thy boundless grace. I yield thee praise for all thy goodly gifts, and I render thee thanksgiving for all thy bounties. Then at the age of 25, I proceeded to thy sacred house, and by the time I returned to the place where I was born, a year had elapsed. There I tarried patiently in the path of thy love, and beheld the evidences of thy manifold bounties and of thy loving kindness, until thou didst ordain for me to set out in thy direction and to migrate to thy presence. Thus I departed therefrom by thy leave, spending 6 months in the land of Sad, and 7 months in the first mountain, where thou didst rain down upon me that which beseemeth the glory of thy heavenly blessings, and befitteth the sublimity of thy gracious gifts and favors. Now in my 30th year, thou beholdest me, O my God, in this grievous mountain, where I have dwelt for 1 whole year. Praise be unto thee, O my Lord, for all times, heretofore and hereafter. And thanks be unto thee, O my God, under all conditions, whether of the past or the future. The gifts thou hast bestowed upon me have reached their fullest measure, and the blessings thou hast vouchsafed unto me have attained their consummation. Naught do I now witness but the manifold evidences of thy grace and loving kindness, thy bounty and gracious favors, thy generosity and loftiness, thy sovereignty and might, thy splendor and thy glory, and that which befitteth the holy court of thy transcendent dominion and majesty, and beseemeth the glorious precincts of thine eternity and exaltation. The Bab. This week, our speaker is Dr. Jena Khadem, and her topic is The Dawn of the Global Age, the Declaration of the Bab. Dr. Khodadad is a fourth-generation Iranian Bahá'í. The majority of her life was in the United States, where she received her Ph.D. from Northwestern University in biological sciences, with a focus on cellular and molecular biology, followed by postdoctoral fellowships and faculty positions in medical and graduate schools. Her academic career entailed lecturing to medical and graduate students and research in cellular and molecular biology. Jena is an emeritus professor. Her scientific publications are in scientific journals and academic books. Aside from her scientific research and publications, she's deeply interested in studies centered on Baha'i history, worldview, and the fundamental principles of the Baha'i Faith, such as the harmony of science and religion. In this respect, her latest publication is a book, Scientific Principles at Work in the Worldwide Advancement of the Baha'i Faith. So with that, I'll hand it off to Dr. Khodadad.
The presentation for today, the title of this talk is The Dawn of the Global Age, ushered in by the Declaration of the Bab. I am delighted to offer this presentation centered on such a monumental event. The Declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. This talk represents my perspective on the Declaration of the Bab, the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith. The Bab and Baha'u'llah are the twin manifestations of the Baha'i era. At this outset, few introductory words are in order for those who may not be familiar with the Baha'i Faith, the most recent of the world's religions. Among the fundamental principles of the Baha'i Faith are independent investigation of truth, harmony of science and religion, elimination of all prejudices, equality of women and men, the oneness of the human race, the recognition of the validity of all the major religions of the world, and the dynamic, progressive interrelationship among them. The principles and teachings of the Baha'i Faith inspire and guide this global age. The Baha'i Faith is widely spread across this entire planet, from pole to pole and in all corners of the world. including within its fold diverse races, religions, nationalities, and ethnicities. It is a veritable microcosm of humanity. It is dedicated to the principle of the oneness of humankind. Thus, it is well suited for bringing about the unification and solidarity of the races, ethnicities, religions, and nations across this planet. The dawn of the global age ushered in by the Declaration of the Bab. The recent observance of the anniversary of the Declaration of the Bab on May 23rd transport my thoughts to the fulfillment of the prophecies anticipated over the ages. I wish to recount briefly some of the events associated with the Declaration of the Bab, the announcement by the Bab of his mission to Mullah Hussein Boshrui, the very first to believe in him, an announcement that set in motion a process on our planet which ever since has been advancing toward globalization. Intense and passionate search for the promised one of the age led Mullah Hussein to Shiraz in Iran to that unforgettable interview with the Bab, an interview that culminated in the declaration by the Bab of his mission. That announcement, that interview, ushered in the dawn of a new age, inaugurated the global age. It is noteworthy that concomitant with that event, the very first telegraphic communication using the Morse code was transmitted over a distance. The birth of the revelation of the Bab in 1844 inaugurated a new phase, a new era on our planet. This presentation is centered on that momentous event, an advent that over the centuries had been eagerly anticipated in the sacred text of the world's religions. The significance and magnitude of the Declaration of the Bab have stimulated research, resulting in volumes of scholarly works. Among these, the following are the sources of my information that I have consulted. That immortal book, God Passes By, penned by Shoghi Effendi, the appointed guardian of the Baha'i Faith. The Dawnbreakers, Nabil's narrative. At its front, this book is enriched with facsimiles of the tablets of the Bab to each of his 18 disciples, known as the Letters of the Living, and also to himself as the 19th of that unit, that Wahid. In addition, is a facsimile of the tablet of the Bab to Baha'u'llah, he who would be made manifest. This magnificent volume, The Dawnbreakers, was organized, edited, authenticated, and enriched with footnotes by the guardian of the Baha'i Faith, Shoghi Effendi. Then there is The Gate of the Heart by Nader Saidi, a valuable resource that includes important explanations. It is a book to be consulted on the ministry and the writings of the Bab. Nader Saidi looks at the writings of the Bab in a unique, refreshing, and scholarly manner. This book is enriched with explanations Saidi provides on the writings of the Bab. From it, I have gleaned valuable insights. Additionally, there were other sources of valuable information, among them The Bab by H.M. Balyuzi. PowerPoint slides used in this presentation facilitate order, enable incorporation of images, clarification of concepts, and most importantly, inclusion of the sources of references and citations used throughout this talk. This presentation is inspired by the announcement of the Bab of his mission on May 23rd, 1844, to Mullah Hussein Boshrui, a young Sheikh scholar, the very first to believe in him. This talk is centered on the birth of the Babi revelation. Bearing these words, the Declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of Baha'i faith, starts his remarkable book, God Passes By, with his first chapter named The Birth of the Baha'i Revelation. In the foreword to this book, Shoghi Effendi starts the account of that great drama of that declaration with these three words, May 23rd, 1844. May 23rd, 1844 marks the birth of the most turbulent period of the heroic age of the Baha'i era, an age which marks the most glorious epoch in the greatest cycle which spiritual history has yet witnessed. Shoghi Effendi continues on to acclaim and extol that significant event that set in motion a divine process. He then transports the reader to the opening scene of that initial act of this sublime drama, to that luminous upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab in the city of Shiraz, Iran, wherein took place the birth of the Baha'i revelation, a room which will forever remain etched upon our minds, hearts, and souls. Of the announcement of the mission of the Bab on that night, no record has passed to posterity, save a fragmentary but highly illuminating account that fell from the lips of Mullah Hussein Bushrui, the one who had set out in quest of the promised one of Islam. The interview between the Bab and Mullah Hussein extended throughout the night and on to the hour of the dawn of the next day, May 23rd. The Bab was the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith. The declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844. The declaration of the Bab continued on from 2 hours and 11 minutes after sunset of May 22nd and on through the night to the hour of the dawn of the next day, May 23rd, 1844. The announcement by the Bab of his mission was in Shiraz, the city known for its beautiful gardens, its fragrant roses, the melodious songs of its nightingales, and the verses of its celebrated poets such as Hafiz and Sa'di. With that announcement, Shiraz became immortalized as the city wherein on May 23rd, 1844, the Bab announced his mission. The hopes and anticipation of ages were thus fulfilled. The Bab was the herald to the revelation of Baha'u'llah. The Bab and Baha'u'llah are the twin manifestations of the Baha'i era. The abundance and irrefutable authenticity of their sacred writings over 48 years from 1844 to 1892 provide a treasury of divine guidance for our times, for this global age. The term manifestation applies to the prophet founders of the major religions of the world: Zoroaster, Krishna, Buddha, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah. Manifestations provide divine guidance for the needs of the times. Manifestations manifest the qualities of God. Through manifestations, we are able to connect to God. The Bab was the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith. The Baha'i Faith is the latest, the most recent of the world's revealed religions. In line with the founders of the great religions of the world, Baha'u'llah provided guidance for the special needs of our times, for this global age. The declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844. The setting of that momentous announcement of the Bab to the very first who believed in him was this remarkable, idyllic upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab in an obscure corner of the delightful city of Shiraz. The Bab announced his mission at the dawn of a new age. His announcement in that ever memorable room as the herald to the advent of Baha'u'llah inaugurated a dynamic process. The announcement of his mission at the dawn of a new age, setting in motion a process that has continued since to advance toward global consciousness, toward a global age. The declaration of the Bab of his mission on May 23rd, 1844, marks at once the inception of the Babi dispensation, the inauguration of the Baha'i era, the commencement of the Baha'i cycle, and the birth of Abdul Baha, the appointed successor to Baha'u'llah, one of the three central figures in the Baha'i faith. At that announcement, that declaration of the Bab of his mission on May 23rd, 1844, in that luminous upper chamber of his house in the city of Shiraz, were two participants: the magnetic person of the Bab, the announcer of his mission as the fulfillment of the advent of the promised one, the promised Qaim, and Mullah Hussein Boshrui, the recipient of that announcement, that soul-stirring declaration. I wish to briefly call forth the account of some of the salient events that led to the declaration of the Bab to Mullah Hussein Boshrui on May 23rd, 1844. In mid-19th century, eager anticipations prevailed for the near approach of the advent of the promised one of the age, as had been foretold in the scriptures, among them the Judaic, Christian, and Islamic sacred texts. In the East, in Iran, among those who fervently and passionately were in search of the promised one of the age was Mullah Hussein Boshrui. In obedience to the parting words of his teacher, Sayyid Kazim Rashdi, the Sheikhi leader, that his disciples go out into the world in search of the Lord of the age, Mullah Hussein, together with a number of Sayyid Kazim's students, kept vigil for 40 days. Next, together with his brother Muhammad Hassan and nephew Muhammad Baqir, Mullah Hussein set out to find the promised one. They took a boat to Bushehr in the Persian Gulf, Bushehr in Iran. When in Bushehr, Mullah Hussein was drawn as by a magnet toward the city of Shiraz. Crossing the foreboding mountainous pass of Allahu Akbar, fatigued and weary, he arrived in Shiraz, few hours before the sunset of May 22nd, 1844. Mullah Hussein continued to walk and ponder outside the gate to the city of Shiraz. Thereupon he came face to face with a youth of striking appearance. Mullah Hussein describes him as a youth of radiant countenance who wore a green turban, thus signifying him as a Sayyid, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. Mullah Hussein recounts that the youth advanced toward him, greeting him with a smile and loving welcome. The youth extended to Mullah Hussein an invitation to his home in order to refresh himself after the fatigue of his journey. Mullah Hussein followed the youth. They passed through streets, alleys, and passageways until they reached the door to the house of the residence of the youth. The youth invited Mullah Hussein to enter therein. As the youth crossed the threshold of that house, he motioned Mullah Hussein to follow him, welcoming Mullah Hussein with these words: "Enter therein in peace secure." Taking this as a good omen, Mullah Hussein entered therein. This was the first house that Mullah Hussein entered in the city of Shiraz. They took the stairs leading to the upper chamber of that house, and through these doors entered into that blessed and sanctified chamber, which was to become the setting of that momentous announcement. In that luminous upper chamber of the residence of the youth, a chamber which will forever remain etched upon our consciousness. The host received Mullah Hussein with utmost care, hospitality, and loving kindness. He remained closeted alone with his guest within the sanctified chamber. They sat down to converse. Suddenly, the host asked Mullah Hussein, whom, after Sayyid Khazem, do you regard as his successor? Mullah Hussein responded, he, the anticipated successor, is to be of pure lineage, illustrious descent, of the seed of Fatimah, his age between more than 20 and less than 30, is endowed with innate knowledge, abstains from smoking, and is free from bodily deficiency. The host said, behold, all these signs are manifest in me. Mullah Hussein had written a dissertation on some abstruse doctrines and carried the treatise with him. Sayyid Khazem had told Mullah Hussein that it is beyond him to comment on this dissertation. However, the one who would come after him will reveal that commentary, which would constitute one of the weightiest testimonies of his truth. The host suddenly told Mullah Hussein, now is the time to reveal the commentary on the Surah of Joseph. During the course of that night, in presence of Mullah Hussein, the Bab revealed in its entirety the first chapter called Mulk of Qayyum al-Asma. The chapters of Qayyum al-Asma affirm the dominion, the sovereignty of God. The first chapter of Qayyum al-Asma, named Mulk, affirms the dominion, the spiritual sovereignty of the mission of the Bab. Qayyum al-Asma, that first greatest and mightiest of all books in Baha'i dispensation, marks the declaration of the mission of the Bab. This luminous chamber became the setting of a profound and weighty conversation between Mullah Hussein and his host, a conversation that lasted throughout the night and on to the hour of the dawn of the next day. Mullah Hussein has left for posterity an awe-inspiring account of that which transpired therein, in that splendid surrounding. The declaration of the Bab on that night fulfilled Mullah Hussein's quest. The soul-stirring expressions of Mullah Hussein of the account of that declaration will remain throughout time. Mullah Hussein, who at long last had found the fulfillment of his intense search, his quest for the promised Qa'im in the person of his host, the Bab. The awestruck Mullah Hussein relates, I sat spellbound by his utterance. I sat spellbound by his utterance. All the delights, all the ineffable glories which the Almighty has recounted in his book as the priceless possessions of the people of paradise, these I seemed to be experiencing that night. Methinks I was in a place of which it could be truly said, therein no toil shall reach us, and therein no weariness shall touch us. The Bab addressed Mullah Hussein with these words, this night, this very hour will in the days to come be celebrated as one of the greatest and most significant of all festivals. Render thanks to God for having graciously assisted you to attain your heart's desire. Well is it with them that attain thereunto. The declaration of the Bab. Mullah Hussein relates, sleep had departed from me that night. I was enthralled by the music of that voice, which rose and fell as he chanted, now swelling forth as he revealed verses of the Qayyum al-Asma, again acquiring ethereal, subtle harmonies. Sleep had departed from Mullah Hussein that night. At the dawn of the next day, Mullah Hussein was awakened by the call of the Muazzin, summoning the faithful to their morning prayer. The declaration, the awe-inspiring announcement of the Bab, of his mission, ushered in the dawn of a new age. That awe-inspiring announcement on May 23rd, 1844, in that upper chamber of the modest residence of the Bab in the delightful city of Shiraz, inaugurated the global age, what God hath wrought. At that time, in the distant continent, North America, a significant event took place. The very first telegraph was transmitted by Samuel F.B. Morse over a distance of 38 miles from Washington to Baltimore. This is the very first communication over a distance transmitted by telegraph, signified and signalized the beginning of a new era, a global age on planet Earth. That telegraph bore these words from the Bible, what God hath wrought. Numbers 23:23. The declaration of the Bab, the announcement of the Bab's mission in 1844, fulfilled the prophecies of past religions. Among them, the biblical prophecies. 1844 was the anticipated year for the fulfillment of the promised advent as prophesied in the Bible. Based on 2,300 days prophesied by Daniel. Through this verse, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Noted in a book published in 1888, which is in my possession, Bible Readings for the Home Circle, copyrighted in 1888 by Review and Herald Publishers. On page 94 of this book, published in 1888, a fascinating diagram explains the 2,300 days prophesied by the prophet Daniel as the date of the fulfillment of the promised advent of Jesus Christ, based on certain calculations to take place in mid-19th century. Several Bible scholars throughout the world deciphered the date around mid-1800 as the year of fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy. The date is marked on a diagram on page 94 from this very book. This diagram I will show through my next PowerPoint slide. 1844, the year of the fulfillment, based on 2,300 days prophesied by Daniel. The source of this diagram again is page 94, Bible Readings for the Home Circle, copyrighted 1888. The date of the Advent 1844 was based on this verse from Daniel. Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. In the Bible, a day represents a year. Based on research and certain calculations, 1844 is marked on page 94 of this book as the anticipated date for the fulfillment of the prophecy of 2,300 days of Daniel. Numerous were those throughout the world who awaited the advent of Jesus Christ at mid-19th century. Notably among them was William Miller, the American Baptist preacher who lived from 1782 to 1849. He was the leader of the Millerism movement. Miller believed in the imminence of the bodily advent of Jesus Christ. Together with his numerous followers, Miller first awaited the advent in 1843, noting that he had made an error by 1 year due to miscalculation. Together with his numerous followers, they awaited the advent in 1844 on top of a mountain in Pennsylvania. William Miller had the date 1844 right. However, when the advent did not take place as he had anticipated, that is in a literal sense, that is Jesus Christ descending on a cloud, they were disappointed. Miller had the date right. He had the dimension of time right, but not the dimension of space. That fulfillment, the advent, did not take place as he had anticipated on the North American continent. Thus it was called the Great Disappointment. The advent, however, did take place on May 23rd, 1844, in that hollow chamber in the city of Shiraz through the declaration of the Bab to Mullah Hussein. Indeed, it was the great appointment. On that night of the declaration of the Bab, Mullah Hussein was suddenly thrust with the magnitude of that awe-inspiring announcement. The revelation of the Bab, the advent of the promised one. Mullah Hussein testified, the revelation so suddenly and impetuously thrust upon me came as a thunderbolt, which for a time seemed to have benumbed my faculties. I was blinded by its dazzling splendor and overwhelmed by its crushing force. Mullah Hussein further testified, expressing joy, awe, and wonder at finding the object of his quest. The knowledge of the Bab's revelation galvanized his being. Excitement, joy, awe, and wonder stirred the depths of my soul. Predominant among these emotions was a sense of gladness and strength which seemed to have transfigured me. Now, however, the knowledge of his revelation had galvanized my being. Awake, for lo, the morning light has broken. Arise, for his cause is made manifest. The portal of his grace is open wide. Enter therein, O peoples of the world, for he who is your promised one is come. On that never to be forgotten night, the Bab addressed Mullah Hussein with these words. O thou who art the first to believe in me, verily I say, I am the Bab, the gate of God, and thou art the Bab ul Bab, the gate of that gate. The Bab continued to address Mullah Hussein regarding the enrollment of his disciples he named with the immortal term, the letters of the living. 18 souls must in the beginning spontaneously and of their own accord accept me and recognize the truth of my revelation. Unwarned and uninvited, each of these must seek independently to find me. In 40 days, 17 others enrolled as the disciples of the Bab. The 17th letter of the living was Tahireh, a woman less than 30 years of age. She had the appearance of the Bab in a dream, and that is when she believed. She gave a sealed letter and her message to Mirza Muhammad Ali, the husband of her youngest sister, to be given to the Bab, together with these verses of her poem. The effulgence of thy face flashed forth, and the rays of thy visage arose on high. Then speak the word, am I not your Lord? And thou art, we will reply. The Bab numbered Tahireh among the letters of the living. The 18th, the last letter of the living, the first in rank was the 22-year-old Qudus, one of the students of Sayyid Qasim. These were named the letters of the living. The Bab's parting words addressed to the letters of the living. Oh, my beloved friends, you are the bearers of the name of God in this day. You have been chosen as the repositories of his mystery. The Bab continued his parting words, his address to the letters of the living, calling forth the words of Jesus Christ addressed to his disciples. Ponder the words of Jesus addressed to his disciples as he sent them forth to propagate the cause of God. You are even as the fire, which in the darkness of the night has been kindled upon the mountaintop. Let your light shine before the eyes of men, that the people of the earth may through you recognize and be drawn closer to the Heavenly Father, who is the source of purity and grace. You who are his spiritual children, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? The Bab continued. You are the witnesses of the dawn of the promised day of God. You are the partakers of the mystic chalice of his revelation. Gird up the loins of endeavor. Purge your hearts of worldly desires, and let angelic virtues be your adorning. Strive that by your deeds you may bear witness to the truth of these words of God. With such words, the Bab quickened the faith of his disciples and launched them upon their mission. They were galvanized to action. They were galvanized to action by the mandate conferred upon them. They set out through that land. They set out, each letter of the living had a mandate. Briefly, the sacrificial acts of the letters of the living. Mullah Ali Bastami was sent to Karbala and Najaf. Mullah Hussein was sent to Tehran and from there to Khorasan. Tehran, wherein a treasure, a secret in that city, a glorious blessing awaited him. Qudus's mission was to accompany the Bab to Hijaz, Mecca and Medina, and convey a letter written by the Bab to the Sharif of Mecca. Thus the Bab, together with Qudus, set out, sailing from Bushehr to Jeddah to Mecca. In Hijaz, the Bab sent an epistle to the Sharif of Mecca, inviting him to embrace his cause. The Sharif failed to respond. After the conclusion of his pilgrimage with Qudus in Hijaz, the Bab bid farewell to Qudus in Bushehr. He sent Qudus to Shiraz with instructions to openly announce his cause, informing Qudus that he would be crowned with a martyr's death. And Tahireh Qurratul Ain, at the age of 27, had been in search of the promised Qa'im. Later, Tahireh traveled to Karbala to meet Sayyid Kazem. Sayyid Kazem had died a number of days before her arrival. Tahireh spent time in prayer and meditation. When in Karbala, she had that dream of the Bab, and that is when she believed. From Karbala, Tahireh proceeded to Baghdad. The clergy grew resentful. From Baghdad, together with a number of her companions, they were escorted to the frontier of Iran. Together with her followers, they traveled through Karan, Kermanshah, Sahne, Hamadan, and then toward Qazvin, and from Qazvin to Tehran, and later to the hamlet of Badasht. At the conference of Badasht in 1848, Tahireh played a significant, a pivotal role. These were the dawnbreakers. These were the dawnbreakers. They scattered far and wide through the provinces of their native land. These were the dawnbreakers, galvanized into action by the mandate conferred upon them, launched on their perilous and revolutionizing mission. They scattered far and wide through the provinces of their native land, where with matchless heroism, they resisted the savage onslaught of the forces arrayed against them. They immortalized their faith. The heroic acts of the letters of the living, their sacrifices, immortalized them throughout time. H.M. Balyuzi, in his book, The Bab, gives a short account of that which befell the letters of the living. 9, including Mullah Hussein and Qudus, were martyred in the Mazandaran upheaval. Mullah Hussein was martyred in Sheikh Tabarsi in 1849 at the age of 36. Qudus was martyred in Sheikh Tabarsi shortly after Sheikh Tabarsi was put to death in 1849 at the hand of an angry mob in Babol, War Furush. Mullah Ali Bastami, sent to Karbala and Najaf, was arrested by the combined Shia and Sunni fatwa was sentenced to death. The Ottoman government sent him to Istanbul. He died in Istanbul. And Tahirih was arrested and placed under house arrest in the house of Kalantar in Tehran. In 1852, Tahirih, with her scarf tied around her neck, was strangled to death in Ilkhani Gardens in Tehran. Her body was thrown into a shallow well, and stones were thrown upon it. Tahirih was the first woman suffragist martyr. Her last words reverberate over time and will continue to resound over the ages of centuries. You can kill me as soon as you like, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women. Lord Curzon speaks of her. Professor E.G. Brown pays tribute to her. She has become a phenomenon. These were the dawnbreakers. Such were the acts of those letters of the living, the disciples of the Bab. Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, in God Passes By, conveys the majesty and the poetry of this magnificent and soul-stirring period of the Babi history. On its master hero, the Bab, are these immortal words of Shoghi Effendi. We behold, as we survey the episodes of this first act of a sublime drama, the figure of his master hero, the Bab, arise meteor-like above the horizon of Shiraz, traverse the somber sky of Persia from south to north, decline with tragic swiftness, and perish in a blaze of glory. Shoghi Effendi continues with his immortal words on those heroes and heroines, the letters of the living. We see his satellites, a galaxy of God-intoxicated heroes, mount above that same horizon, irradiate that same incandescent light, burn themselves out with that self-same swiftness, and impart in their turn an added impetus to the steadily gathering momentum of God's nascent faith. They burned themselves out. By their sacrifices, they imparted an added impetus to the steadily gathering momentum of God's nascent faith. The declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. The declaration of the Bab ushered in the dawn of the global age. What hath God wrought? The call of God is the fountainhead of the surge in creativity. The call of God, fountainhead of the surge in creativity. The call of God, when raised, breathed a new life into the body of mankind and infused a new spirit into the whole creation. Now I wish to place my focus on the statement, the call of God, when raised, breathed a new life into the body of mankind and infused a new spirit into the whole creation. I wish to explore this statement. At this point, I want to introduce an important transition from the account of the declaration of the Bab and the passion and the acts of those God-intoxicated heroes and heroines, the immortal letters of the living, to the enormous creativity that was released through the birth of the revelation of the Bab. I wish to offer an insightful analogy for our consideration, an in-depth reflection, that is the analogy of the birth of a new star in the physical universe, the physical cosmos, its monumental effect, impact on its surroundings. That is the birth of a new star in the physical universe. The emergence, the birth of a new star in our physical universe can exert powerful effects on its surroundings. A new star generates around itself a whole new gravitational field, new powerful forces that had not been there before. The birth of such a star in the physical universe, the physical cosmos, relates releases forces that pull, attract, and generate new conditions and possibilities. This analogy, in some respects, may apply to the emergence of the birth of a new star, a new revelation in the spiritual cosmos, in the spiritual firmament. May in some respects be likened to that emergence, the birth of a new star in the physical universe. Such a birth, such an emergence has powerful effects. The emergence of the star of a new revelation introduces fresh, powerful forces into its surroundings. It introduces new creativity, new possibilities into the world. New forces, new possibilities are generated. On such emergence, these words of Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i Faith, convey inspiration and insights. The onrushing forces so miraculously released through the agency of two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. Those onrushing forces so miraculously released through two independent and swiftly successive manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah have infused new possibilities, new creativity into our world. Powerful forces that had not been there before. The stars of the revelation of the twin manifestation, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, have generated powerful forces, infusing new demands, new creativity into the world system. The new creativity unleashed with enormous new discoveries in all avenues of life has resulted in this equilibrium, in this order. Those forces have revolutionized man in man's ordered life, calling forth this powerful statement from Baha'u'llah. The world's equilibrium has been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. Mankind's ordered life has been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the likes of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. Those forces, the integrating and disintegrating forces, those constructive and destructive forces that are in constant tension with one another, proceed to shape our world. The interplay of these forces is elegantly described by the guardian of Baha'i Faith, Shoghi Effendi, in several of his writings. At this point, I wish to call forth the central theme of this presentation, the Declaration of Bab on May 23rd, 1844, ushered in the dawn of the global age. This statement inspired this presentation. The announcement, the Declaration of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, was coincident, concurrent with that first historic communication, symbolized by the telegraphic message heralding, setting in motion a significant process, forces that ever since have been advancing toward globalization, albeit associated with turbulence. The Declaration of the Bab ushered in a new age on planet Earth for humankind, accompanied with transformation and also associated with turbulence. The Declaration, the announcement of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, set in motion a worldwide process. It inaugurated a whole new era on planet Earth, a global age and global consciousness. The announcement, that declaration, was accompanied with the first historic communication, the telegraphic message heralded by these words from the Bible, what God hath wrought. The Declaration of the Bab ushered in a new era, accompanied with turbulence as well as transformation and creativity. It set in motion forces that since have been advancing toward a global age. The advent of the Bab fulfilled the prophecies of the great religions of the world. Declaration of the Bab in 1844 fulfilled biblical prophecies, the promised advent of Jesus Christ. The Declaration of the Bab in 1844 fulfilled the long-awaited prophecies of Islam. Followers of several great religions of the world have for long awaited the advent of the promised one foretold in their respective sacred texts. Among the great religions of the world, also the Zoroastrian and the Buddhists have for long awaited the advent of the promised one that had been foretold in the respective sacred texts. The Zoroastrian sacred texts anticipate Shah Bahram. The Buddhist texts anticipate Maitreya, the fifth future Buddha destined to appear in the promised golden age. These prophecies and their fulfillment have been studied, explored, researched, and discussed through the efforts of several noted scholars. At this point, I call forth once again the Declaration of the Bab. May 23rd, 1844, what God hath wrought. I wish to conclude this presentation by bringing forth the slide that initiated this presentation. The dawn of the global age, ushered in by the Declaration of the Bab. At this, the conclusion of this presentation, I wish to express my appreciation to the viewers of this presentation, both Baha'is and also the friends of Baha'is, for their interest. I wish to extend to them the invitation to reflect on this theme, to explore and investigate the significance of the announcement of the Bab on May 23rd, 1844, as the fulfillment of the long-awaited prophecies of the great religions of the world. Furthermore, I ask that they reflect on the principles and claims of the Baha'i Faith, the most recent of the world's religion, so in tune with the needs and requirements of this global age.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful and inspirational talk. Really enjoyed it. If anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat. The first question is, thank you to Ms. Khodadad for this beautiful description of the blessed events of 1844. Prior to Mullah Hussein's meeting with the Bab, the Dawnbreakers includes a story of the Bab's journey to Karbala and a meeting with Sayyid Kazem in 1841. While no mention of the Bab's future role was given, the story indicates Sayyid Kazem's reverence for this youth. Do you have any additional details about the events that led to this meeting?
Thank you for asking that question. The details of this event is written more fully in Nabil's narrative and also referred to in God Passes By. Yes, Sayyid Kazem, Mullah Hussein met with Sayyid Kazem, and Sayyid Kazem at that time made some allusions to the Bab having a very significant spiritual station. And it was an allusion that he made, referred to him, to Mullah Hussein. I don't know whether the inquirer has more questions on that, but that event is fully discussed in Nabil's narrative, as well as mentioned in God Passes By, when Mullah Hussein went to Karbala. Mullah Hussein was a student of Sayyid Kazem al-Rashdi, as you all know, the Sheikh leader.
Some of the follow-up questions were, did Sayyid Kazem extend an invitation for the Bab to come? And did Sheikh Abed, the Bab school teacher, ask him to go to Karbala to visit Sayyid Kazem?
I think that is what is being said is accurate. My understanding of that, yes. There could be many questions that have been discussed over time about Sheikhism and about whether the meeting of Mullah Hussein was chance. The meeting of Mullah Hussein and the Bab was a chance meeting, or they were aware of each other's presence. And this has been discussed back and forth. And I'm surprised nobody asked that question, because usually this question is being asked. And I think the understanding is that they did not know. They knew each other beforehand in the context of the Sheikhi teachers' sessions. They had met before, but there was no pre-arrangement for them to meet accidentally. It seemed to me accidentally, but ordained by God at the gate of the city of Shiraz. However, in those times, you see, in these times, we can immediately communicate when we will be where, but in those times, that was not possible. So to me, it seems that it was a chance encounter, divinely ordained, but nobody asked this question.
Is it possible to ask you to talk about your book, The Dynamics of Growth?
Sure. It's a book that employs scientific principles as well as scientific metaphors and scientific analogies to discuss the growth of the Baha'i faith. And so it sheds insights on various stages of growth of Baha'i faith. I have included diagrams in the book, and the book's cover has a butterfly on it. And some people have asked me, why a butterfly? Because often that is the question, why did you put a butterfly on this, on the cover? And that is because the butterfly symbolizes that an inherent capability that then can become manifest. So it's one of the metaphors among quite a few analogies and metaphors that are used. But the ultimate quest in that book for me was try to understand better the process of growth of a world religion such as Baha'i Faith, which has everything to offer to the world. And what is the process of that? And what are the stages that we have to go through in that process? And what are the levels, what are the stages, and what does it exactly mean? So some people have found it quite valuable. They have reached out to me asking for a one-to-one discussion, and I have appreciated that, and I presented that at several large settings. So that's all I can say about the book, but it was published by George Ronald. They were very excited about the book because it was very different from the other kind of stuff that they publish. It has scientific basis, scientific discussions, which led to the growth of any institution, but in particular, the growth of Baha'i Faith. I don't know if the person who requested that question is satisfied with this answer. I would have to say then, possibly we can have a discussion one-to-one, or after reading that book, which is the Scientific Principles at Work in the Worldwide Advancement of Baha'i Faith, published by George Ronald. So whoever asked it, I thank you for asking that question.
I think that's all of our questions, but thank you so much, Dr. Khodadad, for this talk, and this will be available on our YouTube channel soon. Our speaker next week will be Dr. Augusto Lopez Claros, and his topic is A New Vision of World Order, Renewing the United Nations Charter. And again, these talks are every Saturday at noon Eastern time, and I've put the link to our mailing list and our YouTube channel in the chat. And we will end with some writings of the Bab that were mentioned in the talk, set to music.
Must of their own accord accept me, and recognize the truth of my revelation. 18 souls must of their own accord accept me, and recognize the truth of my revelation. say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab.
Accept me.
Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab.
Accept me.
Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God. Verily I say I am the Bab. Verily I say I am the gate of God.
Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.